Well, hey everyone, it's Monday and time for another Monday Mastery live at 5. We'll wait for just a couple of minutes here for a few people to jump on. It just takes a little bit of time. And as you can see by my background, I'm in my Ironwood, Michigan office, and it's much colder. Well, I guess it's about the same as it was when I left a couple of weeks ago. There were 3 inches of snow on the ground. That melted, but over the weekend, I think Friday, they got about 6 to 8 inches, and there's been a little, it's just another 2 or 3 inches on top of that. So it's been, it's winter up here, and I'm not ready for it, but I guess, you're as ready as you can be. So anyway, I hope you all had a great week last week and a wonderful weekend and safe and enjoyable. Hopefully, wherever you're at, you had some decent weather. I know in Lenexa or in the Kansas, Lenexa, Kansas, in the Kansas City area. Weather wasn't that great. We had some strong rains and then cold temperatures. Hey, Shar, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. And for those of you that haven't said hi yet, say hi and tell me where you're at. It's always fun to see who's lurking behind the numbers that I get to see and that's all I get to see. I don't get to see who's here unless you make comments. So anyway, again, I hope you all had a great week and a fabulous weekend. A couple of things came up. The last time I was up here, one of my tenants in my building. Hey, Brandy, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. Last time I was up here, one of my tenants in one of my buildings told me that they were leaving at the end of the month, and that was a bit of a disappointment. He was a decent tenant, not ideal, but he was decent. He paid his rent on time, so that was a good thing. But one of the things that I discovered is that when I got in this weekend, he was completely moved out, but he had left the place a shambles. And it's just, and that was a disappointment to me. And that's our subject today is disappointment. We're all disappointed, whether it's by lovers, by friends, by family, by God, by government, whatever it is. We all are disappointed from time to time, and that's part of life. And one of the things that I've discovered through all my studies is that disappointment is basically generated from unmet expectations. And my expectation of my tenant was that he would do a better job cleaning up and moving out, and he didn't. So now I'm left scrambling. I've got people coming to look at it tomorrow, and I'm scrambling to get it halfway presentable. So I'll spend a good portion of my evening tonight trying to get it ready. Now, and again, that's a disappointment. I had other things planned, and so my disappointment again is my issue. I should not have been surprised, but it was still disappointing to walk in this weekend and see that I had a whole lot more work to do. So, in one of the things in the announcement for tonight's, hey Paul, thanks for joining in. We're in Iowa because I travel through central Iowa at least twice a month. I travel through Des Moines, and so would love to hear where you're at. I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. Disappointment can come in a lot of different forms and for a number of different reasons. We have expectations of our friends. We have expectations of our family. We have expectations of our lovers or our relationships, our husbands, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends. And hey, Linda, thanks for joining in. And a lot of times people will let us down. And again, it boils down to what are our expectations? Did you expect something more from somebody than they gave you? And then we have to dig a little deeper and see, well, did you share what your expectations were? Did you in my case, I'll use me as a perfect example. I did not share with my tenant that I expected him to clean the place up before he left. I just assumed he would because that's what I do. That's what I would do when I moved, or that's what I did when I moved out of my apartment. I cleaned up. I may not have cleaned it a deep cleaning, but it was clean. It was presentable, and there wasn't a lot of work for my landlords to do to come in and to rent it out again. They had to clean carpets, and that's to be expected after 8 years plus or minus that I lived there. But the point is, I had expectations and they weren't met. But I have to take a good chunk of the responsibility there because I didn't share what my expectations were. The same thing happens in a relationship. Hey Phil, thanks for joining us. One of the things that I've learned is that in relationships, if you're not sharing your expectations with your partner, that's where a lot of relationships can get sideways. And that's why creating great communication, open lines of communication between partners is so important. When you can share what your expectations are in advance, it just makes life so much easier. Now, if you've shared what your expectations are and they don't come through, then there's additional reason to be disappointed because they let you down after you've shared with them what you expect. What do you expect in the relationship? What are you looking for? And those are all things that are part of the conversation of getting to know each other. And as things come up, you might be disappointed, and you can then address that and say, hey, listen, I was really disappointed when this happened, and I would appreciate it if that didn't happen, or if you didn't do that again. It could be telling off-color jokes. It could be making a joke at your expense, or whatever it is, leaving the toilet seat up, or the clothes not making it into the laundry hamper. Whatever it is, you have to be able to share those expectations, and then you have to start having a conversation when they don't happen as to why it's not happening. They may think that that you have unreasonable expectations. Are they expecting you to? I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Are they thinking that they should be taken out for dinner or treated to dinner every night? That might be an unreal expectation. Are they expecting you to spend all of your free time with them? That could be an unreal expectation. But these are things that you have to talk about. You have to share. You have to communicate. And when they communicate with you what their expectations are with you, if it falls on you to respect that, assuming they're the expectations are within reason. But disappointment hits us all. It's not something that any of us can walk through life without it happening. We especially in the dating world, if you're dating online, it you can be disappointed. You can get your hopes built up on somebody that you read a profile and they look absolutely perfect on paper, but as you get to know them, for the first few texts are probably okay, and first couple of phone conversations are okay, but then things start unraveling, and the first meeting might be a total bust because there's no chemistry, there's no no physical attraction to the person. So there's disappointment there. And again, were your expectations too high? And one of the things that I've learned, just because I've dated so much over the last 11 years, is that it's hard for me to get excited about meeting somebody for the first time. Just simply for the fact that I've done it so often, I don't get my hopes up that this is going to be the extraordinary relationship that I'm looking for. Hey, Sylvia, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. So, and sometimes our expectations, again, can be unreal if we create the illusion in our minds that the person we're going to meet for the first time tonight is our soulmate. Odds are you are going to be disappointed. They've not done anything to lead. Hopefully, they haven't done anything to lead you on to say that they feel that you're soulmates, or we build these things up in our minds, and sometimes our minds are our biggest enemies. So, and when that happens, we have to learn to deal with the disappointment. And again, when you've been dating for a few years, it's always best to go into a situation with very low expectations. And when you have those very low expectations of anything turning out, it's always a pleasant surprise if it does. But it's not a huge disappointment if it doesn't. So anyway, tell me some of your experiences of disappointment. Sylvia, let me grab this real quick. Sylvia says, "Yep, our minds play tricks on us. They absolutely do, and those things are, and those are the things that we have to pay attention to. Again, to especially for first dates and second dates, to set the expectations low. Don't anticipate that this is, there's going to be skyrockets and or fireworks and just love will be in the air. It doesn't necessarily work that way. It takes a little time to get to know somebody and for those connections to develop. Now, yes, I'll admit that there are some that run into love at first sight, and for the most part, I believe that's more infatuation than love, because you don't know that person well enough to really be in love with them, and it just takes time. There are so many little landmines that can trip you up or trip your partner up, that to set expectations too high early on is a recipe for failure, at least in my opinion and in my experience. So the idea is to just lower those expectations, and then if it doesn't work, then you can walk out saying, yeah, okay, it was a nice dinner or whatever it was. It was a nice evening. It was a nice nice happy hour. And then just walk away and say, okay, next. And then you're not disappointed. But when we let our minds run away with situations, I've had conversations with people that they and this is me personally. I always get a little a little leery of anybody that's really, really anxious to meet me. As far as dating is concerned, it makes me wonder if there's a little desperation there, or if they're grasping at straws, and they're looking for someone to be there. I don't want to use the word savior, but they're someone to be there. Just to be to make them complete. And whenever I hear somebody say they complete me, or they make me whole, well, then that's got to be a tough relationship, because you're depending on that person to make you happy. And Char's got a comment here. Char says, disappointed when people aren't honest about their goals. Your profile states pretty clearly what your interests, values, goals are, and even in face-to-face conversations, you communicate all of that. Sure enough, they're not on board with all of that. But time spent reveals none of that was true. Very frustrating, and it wastes a lot of time getting to the truth. Absolutely. And that's being honest, being truthful. That's a great observation. It is disappointing when that you start building your expectations based on a false premise, and that is never a healthy way to start a relationship. And we all tend to put our best foot forward, but you still, what it boils down to is you still have to be you. And I find that the older I get, the less my good foot sticks out, for lack of better terms. I'm me, and like me or not, I am who I am. And I've actually gotten to the point, and I hope most of you are this way too, that if you like me, great. If not, okay, I'm fine. And I will be, just as I hope all of you will be. And Sylvia says, okay, Rick, but is that really bad? Sylvia, tell me, what is that really bad? Setting expectations too high in the beginning, or kind of leading somebody on? Hey, Mike, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. Oh, here it is. I got it. I mean, some people may be really excited to meet you, that with hopes you're the one, so their excitement shows. Well, there's now, and that's a very good point. So let me clarify that. There's a difference. At least I've found that there's a difference, and I hope some of you have found this out too. There's a difference of somebody being excited to meet you, but then there's an overt excitement. Well, I just can't, there's a fine line, Sylvia. At least for me, there's a fine line that when things come out a certain way, it starts setting off warning buzzers or warning alarms. The red flags start coming up. It's almost coming across as being needy, and that in this is in my experience, that when I start hearing that kind of tone, or that kind of conversation, that starts setting off red flags for me. and it may be just me, and I talk through it with them to make sure that we're on the same page, that there's not a lot of neediness there, that it is a sincere desire, but but again, it is a fine line between a sincere interest and then like, oh my God, we have to meet. I want to date you. Da 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 da. And however the conversation goes. Hey, Stephen, thanks for joining in. Sylvia says, yes, got it. So that's what I'm talking about, is that neediness and the red flags there. Number one. It's probably the date that's going to be a disappointment for both of you, because they have you built up so big or so large in their minds that you're the one, that this is going to be the relationship that's going to be the one to end all other relationships. And so those are the types of things that set off red flags for me. And I'm hoping that you all recognize that fine line too. And for those of you that are newer into the dating world, it takes some time. It takes a little bit of experience and practice, and unless it's really over the top, it takes a little bit of time to become discerning about the difference between fact and fiction. Hey, Susan, thanks for joining in. Glad you're here. She's in Drexel, North Carolina. Awesome. Hey, Stephen, where are you at these days? Are you still in North Carolina? Anyway. So there are a lot of ways or a number of ways of setting yourself up so that disappointment doesn't destroy your dating experiences. Start out with realistic expectations of especially first dates, and for anybody that's looking for your soulmate, you're going to have a lot of first dates, as I call them, a lot of one and dones. And the one and dones, while the date can be fun, it's just the odds of the first date turning into something that will last for a lifetime is slim. And so when we walk into a dating situation, or a first date situation, we have to have that in the back of our mind. We can be hopeful. Don't misunderstand me. We should all be hopeful that this could be something fantastic. And then there's those dates you go on this and, nah, I really shouldn't go on this one, but okay, what the heck. And then that one just plays out, and sometimes you might be pleasantly surprised and said, hey, this one went a lot better than I thought. And Paul says, ghosting is disappointing to me. Go ahead and tell me the truth. Absolutely. And, that's, unless you're a stalker, I think we all deserve the truth. Just be an adult. Be honest with the person. Say, and if you've only been one or two times, I guess you can do it by text is easy enough. If you spend any time together, I always prefer in person or phone calls, and just say, hey, listen, this isn't the relationship for me. You're a good woman or you're a great guy, but it's not a good fit for me. It has nothing to do with you, and doesn't make you a bad person. It's just not right for me. This isn't the relationship I'm looking for. So, and those are the kinds of conversations that you have to have. And it can be, they may ask, well, what's missing? What am I, what don't I have? And if you can be specific, say, okay, you have cats. I don't know. That's one of my deal breakers. And I like to use that one because, and I know there's a lot of you out there that just love cats and love cat videos. I'm not one of those people. I'm a dog guy, and but I don't even have a dog because I don't want the responsibility right now. It's like having on my trip up here, I ran into a couple that were in their motorhome, and the dog got out, and it was following the wife, and the husband calls the dog back, and the dog goes back and jumps in the coach, and then stares out the window while they're going to use the facilities at the rest stop. And it's like having a 2-year-old. But I digress. Pets are a great. Pets can be a great companionship. They at least dogs can show unconditional love. If we could all love more like dogs, you can walk out of the house for 5 minutes and you come back in and they greet you like you've been gone all day. So anyway, and so rarely do they disappoint. They're there waiting for you, and they're dependent on you. So, whereas other adults there may not be so dependent on you. Although when you get into a good relationship, you do start to depend on each other to continue to grow and build the relationship. You become dependent on the other to follow through on the things they say they're going to do. Whether it's building an empire, or whether it's going to the grocery store on their way home from work and picking up a gallon of milk. Whatever it is, you grow to depend on each other. Now, and hopefully you pay attention to each other so that you don't disappoint your partner when at least not too often, if you forget to bring the milk home after work. So there's a lot of, and a lot of times we'll be disappointed, or we'll disappoint our partners unintentionally. It's just like I said, you forget to make that stop on the way home, whether it's the cleaners or the convenience store or something else, or you get tied up and you neglect, and I'm going to say neglect, to call, because sometimes if your partner is waiting for you at home, waiting for you at home with dinner ready, and you say you're going to be home at 6 and you don't show up until 7 and don't let them know, that's disappointing. And those are kinds of disappointments that can be avoided many times just by picking up the phone, because we all have one of these, and it's just easy enough to say, if you're in the middle of a meeting or middle of a conversation, you can say, hey, wait just 1 minute, I just need to make a quick phone call, and let your partner know that you're going to be late. Let your date know. If something's come up, give them a call. Don't leave them hanging, and try not to wait until the last minute. There's nothing worse than waiting on a date or getting ready for a date, and then at the last minute having them call and say, I can't make it. Something's come up. If you can foretell those potential roadblocks, or those potential interruptions to your plans, or diversions from your plans, let your partner know that, hey, this might happen tonight. I'm not sure, but let's plan on this, and if not, let's plan an alternate date. Or if they're important enough to you, let them know that whoever calls in or whatever distraction comes in, say, nope, I can't do it tonight. I've already got plans. I'm booked, and go from there. Show your partner that they mean something to you. If you're devoted to your job, great. But there comes a point in time where you have to separate yourself from work and have a social life. And hey, Lindsay, thanks for joining in. Glad to see you're here. I hear so many times that a lot of in realtors. For those of you that might be realtors out there, I know that it's a feast or famine, or can be a feast or famine type of event, and you always try to accommodate clients. But if you've got a date planned, don't cancel it at the last minute. Unless there's really an emergency and a deal you got going through. But to cancel a date for potential to go show a house, just tell your client, and I guarantee you they'll respect you for this. You don't have to tell them you've got a date. Just all you have to do is say, I'm already booked for the evening. Let's take a look at this property tomorrow. And I know this. I've experienced this, and I've had clients tell me, and even friends tell me that they get disappointed when they try to date somebody that works in the evening, like realtors or and pastors or military or police. They can all be very difficult to date because they have unusual schedules. They can be called out at any time. So so you have to set yourself up for or be prepared for some disappointment when you're dating people in certain professions. It's just one of those things that think through what if you've got a date with somebody, think through what's their occupation. Is there any possibility that they're going to be called out or they're going to need to break the date? You should have some of this information, or a good portion of this information, before you even have the first date. So you can alleviate some of the disappointment. Now, and if there's an emergency or something that just absolutely comes up that can't be accounted for or couldn't have been planned, I understand. That does happen. It happens with all of us. But if you're dating somebody and you want to get to know them, you have to put in some effort to make that date work. You have to put in some effort to show that you're interested. And one of the ways of doing that is keeping the date. So if there's even a remote possibility that the date will be broken, don't schedule it for that day. Schedule it for a day that that there's not going to be anything that comes up, unless it's just an absolute personal emergency or family emergency that you couldn't possibly have planned for. So anyway, questions. Shoot some questions here. Let's see what's on your mind. You're disappointed, and again, Paul brought up a good one: ghosting. It's just that's such a coward's way out. It just drives me crazy, and then after you've dated a few times, and seem to be getting along, and the other person texts you and says, "Yeah, this just isn't the relationship." Don't be a coward. Call them. Give them their due respect, and let them know that give them the respect of talking to them either face to face or at least on the phone. You can even talk face to face on these things. You're not in the same room, but you can at least see their face, and it's I don't know, these smartphones and and while they provide some wonderful resources for us, it's also made it more difficult for us to communicate like adults. In a way that we have to take responsibility for ourselves. And that's ghosting. That's a form of in my opinion, that's a form of being irresponsible. It's just, okay, I don't want anything to do with that person. Now, the only thing that I can say is as far as ghosting is concerned, is that if there's a problem with the relationship, I had someone reach out to me over the weekend and ask the question, and she laid out a good story, and I'm not going to share the whole story here, but she laid out all the relevant details for me. And basically what happened is she's been talking to a guy for about 2 years, and they have never met. He keeps saying, yes, let's meet. But whenever it comes time to start scheduling a time to meet, he just backs off. He says something to the effect that well, I have some things to work through yet, and it's personal, and he just kind of gets silent. And I don't, and in that sense, I don't know if he stops talking to her for a while, or if he just gets silent in the middle of the conversation. But that being said, what I shared back with her is that this has been going on for about 2 years, on again, off again. And what I shared with her is he's got something to hide. If you've been talking for 2 years and can't find a time to meet, there's something to hide there. And my first guess is that he's married. And that she's just a piece of side action that he gets to talk to. He gets to fantasize about. And I haven't heard back from her since I wrote to her yesterday, but it's if you're not willing to meet or can't meet, now there are going to be certain things, certain situations where it may take a little bit of time, just depending on how busy each one of you are and what your schedules are. It may take a little bit of time to figure out when you can meet. But if you can't meet in the first 2 or 3 months, especially if you're talking regularly, there's got to be some issues. And every situation is unique, and I'm not going to say that anybody that can't meet in the first couple of months isn't worth following or pursuing. But you have to start wondering, where are their priorities? What's going on in their life that they can't make time to meet? Or if it's you, what's going on in your life that you can't make time to meet someone, especially if they're interested. Now, if there's a mediocre interest on your part and a strong interest on their part, then maybe it's time to have a conversation. Said, yeah, I'm just not feeling the connection, and maybe the timing just isn't right. Let's put this on hold and let's talk again in 3 months, 6 months, a year, whatever it is. But don't string somebody along, especially if you're not feeling a great connection to them. So that creates all kinds of disappointment in and of itself, because you've got somebody hanging on you or not hanging on you, but they're waiting on you to get to a point where you can get to meet, and unfortunately, you're wasting their time if you're not willing to meet. So just be honest and upfront with somebody. It's nice to have conversations. It's nice to have somebody to talk to, or even pick up the phone and call. But if you're not interested in meeting, especially if it's long distance, figure out a way, figure out a time that you can get together and make it work. Figure out what your schedules are and and roll from there. Where there's a will, there's a way, and we can all figure it out. It just has to become a big enough priority for you to be able to make it happen. And if you consistently put off making it happen, expect fully to be dumped or to be ghosted or whatever it is. But anyway, to my point is if you've been talking for a couple of years and you can't put this all together, yeah, that's okay to ghost somebody because they're not being straight up with you. They're not being forthright with you. I just had an instance within my meetup group. Within the last couple of weeks, there was I use the term loosely. There was a man. Let's use that. A man that wanted to join the group, and I hadn't approved him yet. And shortly before I have a schedule that where I go through the membership requests, and I hadn't gotten to those requests yet. And somebody within the group said, "Hey, if so and so tries to join the group, this is what's happening. I've had to put a restraining order against him, and yada yada yada." And so you just have to be aware that he's not a great guy. And so, and it just so happened that he applied, and I declined his membership, and I explained why. And the gal had ghosted him, had blocked him because he was a stalker and abusive, and she just wrote to me tonight and said that he was arrested trying to put a tracking device on her car. So these are the kinds of people that it's perfectly okay to ghost. And I'm not. Forgive me for laughing. That's not a funny situation. Where I find humor is in ghosting. Yes, that's the relationship. That's the type of person that's okay to ghost. Somebody that's a problem, somebody that you don't want contact with. Now, and after you break up, it's okay to ghost somebody. And I actually encourage breaking off all contact with somebody. Blocking them on your phone, blocking them or hiding them on social media. And the reason is that, number one, they can't follow you and see what you're doing, but almost as important, or maybe more important, is that you're not tempted to look and see what they're doing. What kind of disappointment or hurt or upset do you get when you see an ex dating somebody or out having a good time, and you're sitting at home on the weekend with your glass of wine, watching binge watching whatever you binge watch on Netflix or YouTube or Hulu or whatever service you have. Hey, Teresa, how are you doing? Good to see you're here. Teresa says, "Hey, Rick, hope you're well. You're sad hearing me. We'll tune in soon." Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on, let's see. She's got a follow-up here. I miss hearing you, not sad. Well, I miss having you here too. But glad you're here now. So anyway, there are so many ways to get disappointed, and I just pointed out another one is if you hang on to connections or links to your ex again through social media or your phone, and it's so easy to follow somebody and see what they're doing and get upset, or you're disappointed that they're off enjoying life, and here you are sitting home alone, or so the point here is that when you get into ghosting somebody for social media, it's a lot of times it's for your own benefit as well as keeping them away, because let's face it, if you were in a relationship and it didn't work, one of the easiest things to do, especially when you're lonely, is to reach out to your ex and start a conversation. And then the next thing you know, even if it was, and obviously it wasn't an extraordinary relationship, otherwise you wouldn't have broke up. But you start talking and you start hashing through things, and you think that you start getting emotionally attached again. And see, this is the problem with staying in contact with an ex, is because you run that risk, and it becomes you become very susceptible to revolving door relationships. You break up for the first time for the same reason that you're going to break up the second, third, fourth, 12th time. You broke up for a reason, and because for whatever it was, the relationship was not extraordinary. And when it's not extraordinary, there's no point in staying. Now, are there misunderstandings? Are there things that you might be able to work out? Sure, there's that chance. But odds are that, no. It's, the odds are that the reason you broke up the first time is that reason hasn't changed. It hasn't gone away. As much as we think that it will, your partner may say, "Oh, I've changed, I'm different, yada yada yada," and you fall, you can fall into that. But again, you're going to be disappointed because the reason hasn't changed. It might be a temporary, they might have done something, changed something temporarily, but then they fall back into their old habits, their old routines, because that's who they are. And a lot of times, people try to make some quick changes to attract to draw their partner back, their ex-partner or their ex-mate back. And when after that happens, then they relax and start doing the things that caused the relationship to break up in the first place. So that's why it's okay to ghost. That's why it's okay to block somebody. If there's abuse or neglect or hey, Jill, thanks for joining in. I'm glad to see you're here. And there's it's so easy to again just get sucked into a relationship after it's ended, and that's why it's so important to end, when you end a relationship, end your connections with them on social media, on your phone. You may keep the number in your phone, but just block them, just so that if they if by chance they send you a text or they try to call you, you can still see who it's from, as opposed to seeing an unidentified number and answering it, and all of a sudden you discover it's your ex. Because I don't know about you, but I don't memorize phone numbers anymore. I used to be able to, I used to have all my best friends memorized, and used to just be able to dial the phone. Now, with smartphones, if it's not in there, you'll have to identify who you are if you call. So you could avoid a lot of disappointment by blocking or ghosting your ex. And now, and again, to Paul's point, if you've only had a couple of conversations and you're being ghosted, it's not the classy way of doing things. But I've had that done to me too, and I say, okay, whatever. Or connecting on a dating site where they like you, you like them, you start a conversation, and then nothing. It's like, really, what the hell? Why did you bother to like me if you're not going to talk to me? So there are a lot of ways of being disappointed, but anymore I just kind of roll my eyes and say, yeah, okay, whatever. And as you date, as you become more experienced in dating, and you all are in different different points of different points along the singleness timeline. If you're just out for if you're just new into the dating world or within the first couple of years, yeah, it's so easy to get to become disappointed because somebody that you thought was really cool or really awesome doesn't respond to you or ghosts you or whatever it is. It's easy to get disappointed. But the more you do it, the more you recognize that, yeah, that's going to happen. You don't know what's going on in their life. You don't know. They may have found somebody, and if you haven't started a conversation yet, they may connect with you, but they may not be paying members, so they may not be able to respond to your messages. So there's any number of reasons. So don't get too wrapped up in this stuff and get disappointed, because what happens if you get enough disappointment, or if you let enough of these things disappoint you, ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to get frustrated and say, to hell with it. I'm not dating anymore. I'm not, I just don't want to do it. It's too hard. It's too this, too that. But the reality is you won't find your soulmate if you don't keep going. Hey, Sam, thanks for joining in. Let me get your... if you and your ex had lots of friends in common on social media, should you also block them? That's a great question, Sam. And that one's... Those are the case-by-case situation. And my experience is that... depending on how long the relationship was, you're going to find that some of your friends or some of your common friends are going to go with your ex, and some of them are going to go with you. I think you might not need to block them. But you can unfollow, at least on Facebook. I don't know about Instagram or some of the others. You can unfollow them. You can still be friends, but you just don't see their stuff in your Facebook feed. And so that might be an option. If you see them doing things with your ex, and you still like them, you're still friends, yeah, just don't follow them. That way, if they want to reach out to you, they can still see what you're doing. And so that might be an alternative. But if they're leaning more, if they're friends that she brought to the relationship and they became mutual friends, yeah, you can unfriend them and move on. The key, though, Sam, I think in what we're talking about here, what I think we're talking about is that if your ex is doing a lot of stuff with them, then it may be best to unfriend them, so at least you don't see what's going on. And if the breakup really hurts you, then yeah, maybe you need to block those friends, just so that you're not constantly reminded of your ex. And that's really the only reason I encourage you to block somebody or to ghost them is to protect yourself. And so often just the sight of them, just a picture, can trigger all kinds of emotions. And when that starts happening, you really have to protect yourself from opening up these wounds again, because it takes time to heal from the end of a relationship or from a relationship ending. And when we're constantly exposing ourselves to the person we broke up with, it makes it really, really, really difficult to move forward, to heal, and to be able to move forward into eventually a new relationship. So again, Sam, I would take it on a case-by-case basis, and and if some of those friends say, "Hey, I saw your ex this weekend," and say, "Yeah, okay, that's fine. I don't care. I don't care to know. That's past history, and it's time for me to move on." And just make it clear with those folks that you don't care to know what your ex is doing. I hope that helps, Sam. If I've left anything out there, let me know. Or if you have any other questions around that, let me know. So anyway, I hope this has been I hope this has been helpful for you all. I hope it's kind of giving you some food for thought. Saying. Sam says it did. Thank you. You're very welcome, Sam. I'm glad. So this is dating can be so disappointing and frustrating at times. We just have to be able to manage that disappointment. And in managing that disappointment, sometimes you just have to recognize that, not everybody I meet is going to be my soulmate. It is a matter of numbers, and you just have to recognize that, okay, this isn't the one, so maybe it's the next one. Maybe it's the next one. It may be there may be 20 more no's before you finally get a yes. That's just the way it works. But anyway, I just had a thought that just evaporated from my mind. Anyway, I hope this was helpful. If you need more information, want to learn more about intentional dating, go to Amazon or go to my website and check out my book, Dating Backward, A Practical Guide to Dating and Finding Your Soulmate. It helps you become crystal clear about what you want by helping you create your must-have list, your deal-breaker list, and helping you think about what you bring to the table and what makes you extraordinary. Because we all have to think of ourselves as extraordinary. What makes us extraordinary for somebody else, or what are the things that somebody else might be looking for that we have to offer? So anyway, it's available on my website, ricksodabeer.com, and it's available on Amazon. And the book is Dating Backward: A Practical Guide to Dating and Finding Your Soulmate. If you just type in Dating Backward, you'll find it. And it's also available in ebook on Amazon. So anyway, I hope you have a great and blessed week. I will hopefully be back in Kansas City, in the Kansas City metro area next Monday. Although the way things are going around here, I may still be here next week. Who knows? Next week will be a surprise to me too. So have a great and blessed week, everyone, and have a safe weekend next weekend. And I think the following week is Thanksgiving already. Holy smokes, it's coming up quick. And hopefully I'll talk to you or see you guys before Thanksgiving. But if not, have a happy Thanksgiving early. Anyway, have a great evening, everyone. Love you. Thanks for tuning in.